Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket from Rev TV. You'll get every game every Sunday afternoon from around the league. Plus, NFL Sunday Ticket gives you up to 8 live games on one screen with Game Mix. You'll get that died and woke up in football heaven experience when you upgrade to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, including Red Zone, the channel dedicated to every scoring play from every game. And if you add Rev TV HD to NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, you'll be entered to win big weekly prizes with NFL Wildcard Mania. Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket.
BTC customers asked to bear with dropped calls and slow data for a little longer. A former state minister weighs in on the prospect of higher BEC bills. Have your appliances been trashed by power outages? Tonight we'll show you that you're not alone. Plus, an LGBT activist hits back at a poll on gay marriage. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and NB12 starts right now. Topping news tonight, Bahamas Telecommunications Company President and CEO Leon Williams today suggested previous upgrades to BTC's network were ineffective. He also revealed its customers may have to bear with poor service like dropped calls and slow data for another 2 months. Our Jasmine Brown has the details in this report.
There has been increased concern and complaints about BTC service, particularly cell phone service, over the past few months. But according to Williams, executives are working on a more focused approach to tackle the problem. Williams suggested that efforts to address the poor quality of cellular service in the past were ineffective and warned that mobile customers could experience difficulties for the next 7 to 8 weeks. However, he noted this problem could be resolved before then.
We are hoping that the customers in New Providence will begin to feel some of those changes by the end of October, November.
BTC officials said in June that they would address issues related to the poor service by the end of July. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Perry Christie noted that there was concern about the number of dropped calls. Following Christie's comments, Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson also called on BTC to get its act together. Speaking candidly today, Williams admitted that in the past, BTC spent money on upgrades that did not solve the problem.
BTC over the last couple of years has made some investments in the network. But sometimes, from my opinion, it was like taking a candle to boil an ocean. And so we are now a little bit more focused on what we're doing.
Another issue, he said, is that BTC is experiencing difficulties locating sites for its towers.
The most difficult task right now is site acquisitions, getting a place that you can either buy the land, lease the land to put up towers. Most people want good cellular services, but most people don't want a tower in their backyard. So that's a major challenge. Unlike the United States, where you see little towers because they are high-rise buildings, the antennas are usually placed on the buildings. So if you pass by JFK, for example, BTC's headquarters, you'll see the antennas on that building. If you look at the Malia Hotel, you'll see antennas on that building. If you went to Freeport and you look at Lucayan Towers, you'll see antennas on those, but there are not enough buildings of that height in New Providence or in Freeport to give us the coverage. So as a result of that, we end up having to build towers.
The BTC boss said the telecoms company is working feverishly to improve service and says more than $60 million is being spent to do just that.
We're trying to install an additional 20-plus cell sites as we speak, trying to do the property acquisition to build the towers to install those cell sites to be able to address the drop call situation. Migrating the network, the wireline fixed network from a legacy line network to a next generation network.
Williams added that fixing their service issues is key to maintaining its customer base against competitors. BTC's monopoly on the cellular market ended on August 6th. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Just a few days after NB12 revealed electricity bills would increase next month as a result of the large amount of load shedding the Bahamas Electricity Corporation carried out last week, the former state minister with responsibility for BEC is blasting the government and the current chairman, saying it's not fair consumers once again have to pay for BEC's shortcomings. Kyle Joaquin has the story.
Just how fair is it that BEC consumers will notice an increase on their next light bill as a result of load shedding that occurred last week? Well, a former cabinet minister says that is completely unfair. In fact, he called it shameful and unchristian. Nemore believes Leslie Miller, as chairman of BEC, owes Bahamians a little more than a countless string of apologies. On Friday, Miller once again found himself apologizing on behalf of the company for 3 days of load shedding. Residents in some areas said their power went off more than 20 times in one day. After a tour of the Clifton Pier power plant where 3 generators failed, causing the outages, Miller told reporters that consumers could notice an increase in their fuel surcharge on their next light bill. That increased 10 cents more per kilowatt hour, which Nemore says translates to a 10% increase. Nemore adds that regardless of how big or small it is, consumers shouldn't have to pay because of the company's slip-ups.
I believe that this is morally wrong and unchristian for Bahamians to pay extra for fuel charge as a result of the poor service being provided by BEC. Bahamians should not have to pay due to poor decisions being made by the government and Mr. Leslie Miller. It is also showing the insensitivity of the PLP government to the pain being experienced by the Bahamian people as they fly around the world.
It was revealed last Friday by John Hansen, project manager for BWSC in Denmark, that the fuel BEC uses contains harmful components that adds more wear and tear on the 24-year-old generators. Nemore says it was the same fuel BEC used when he was in charge and that it all comes down to poor maintenance.
The same supplier was providing under the FNM. Right now they can say whatever they want. I'm still of the view, poor maintenance. Poor maintenance and bad decisions being made. This is not the time for excuses while the Bahamian people are bearing the cost of additional electricity bill.
Nemore recommends there be a cap placed on fuel surcharge at 26 cents per kilowatt hour so consumers never have to wonder how high it will be.
I am recommending that the government return to the FNM policy that we had in place, in which we had put a cap or a ceiling on the fuel charge being charged to each customer, where we set it at 26 cents per kilowatt hour. The reason we had set that is because we had felt that that was more reasonable at the time, and that was a rate that the Bahamian people could accept, that BEC could accept, and more reasonable to the government, and more bearable, and also at the same time not impact BEC's operation at that time.
Nemore says those generators should be overhauled once a year, usually around winter when there is less power being used. He recently criticized the government over the secrecy surrounding the renegotiation of the state-owned power company. Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis recently said a decision had been made. However, there has still been no announcement either. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
While angry BEC customers are demanding the corporation compensate them for electronics and other appliances damaged during sporadic power outages. Several residents say they shouldn't have to replace thousands of dollars worth of appliances themselves, considering the fuel surcharge on their power bills is increasing. Shanique Miller reports.
The worst of the blackouts might be over, but the challenges are now just starting for tens of thousands of BEC customers who are now surveying the damage and totaling the unexpected expense they're now saddled with.
It's been really bad for us down here in Carmichael. I wonder sometimes if they don't have a special reason for doing us in.
Smith's frustration comes from the amount of appliances she's lost since the power outages began.
We have lost a 42-inch TV. Gone. The second TV, they destroyed the HD component in that, and the HD box that we bought from Cable Bahamas. That is destroyed along with the component in the TV. That's the second TV now. My microwave, gone.
To make matters worse, the family's refrigerator was also hit by the blackouts 3 times, and all 3 times a technician had to be called in at cost.
To fix it, for the gentleman who comes and fix it, was like, well, I guess probably over $500, but the part that was put in cost, I think, $200 and something.
If homeowners felt it, then the unpredictability of the blackouts crippled businesses. The Spa of Eden lost 3 air conditioning units. The repair and replacement bill costly.
The first unit we lost was our 3-ton. When we lost our 3-ton, we were advised to downgrade to a 1-ton to really help balance out the amount of power that was going to be generated in terms of what was happening. We did that, which raised the cost of our electrical bill, and in the process, within a week and a half of going to a 1-ton, we lost that. So we've had to replace the 3-ton.
You downgraded to the 1-ton, then you ended up losing that.
We lost that, and so when we lost the 1-ton, we replaced it now just recently, probably about a month and a half ago, with another 1-ton. So it's a bit frustrating.
Thompson says many days saw his business in darkness, unable to service clients, unable to meet projected revenue.
It is a concern because as the cost of operation goes up, I mean, you're not talking about VAT as yet. You're talking about just being able to manage the basic service that you need to exist and to function in a business. It's really becoming now a bit frustrating because you ask yourself, where can I cut to maintain, or where could I, downsize to really continue to offer quality? And there's really no room to do that. So when you look at what the companies are willing to do for its consumer, they're on the other hand not giving you much options.
The way I've been affected is devastating to me because I've lost stuff that I cannot recover. I've lost 3 2-terabyte hard drives. I'm in the business of video productions, weddings, funerals, seminars, documentaries, the full. I've lost a lot of people work, and to replace it, I call a lot of places around the world, and to replace stuff, and the first step is like $299. That's just the first step. It could go up to $1,600 and plus.
How do you take and what is your response to Leslie Miller announcing late last week that come the next billing cycle, that your power will increase, that you're going to pay more?
I honestly, I am very angry about that, because if I am not getting a service, why should I have to pay more money?
BEC Chairman Leslie Miller has promised to form a committee to look into the losses suffered by consumers to hopefully compensate them, but he said nothing about it since. Reporting for NB12, I'm Shanique Miller.
A well-known activist for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered rights has dismissed the results of a scientific poll on same-sex marriage as disingenuous. Aaron Green says while the majority of Bahamians are against same-sex marriage, there are some homosexuals who want to get married in the Bahamas and even attempted to do so. Vonique Toot reports.
A prominent LGBT rights advocate is questioning the accuracy of a recently conducted poll which suggested that there is no public support for same-sex marriage in the Bahamas. Human rights advocate Erin Green says she feels the poll conducted by Public Domain is disingenuous.
Let's be honest, we know that the vast majority of Bahamians will not agree with the government providing a same-sex marriage contract in the Bahamas. But to say that nobody supports it, it's disingenuous. And we just look at the poll as a very small poll.
Results show that 86.5% of respondents strongly oppose same-sex marriage, 4% somewhat oppose it, 3.7% somewhat supported, 3.1% strongly supported, and 2.8% did not answer. Public Domain President Mwale Raming said results show that no one is interested in same-sex marriage in the Bahamas, and added not even members of the LGBT community are clamoring for it. However, Green disagrees.
I know LGBT people who would have said no themselves out of a fear of being identified as gay just through their support. And whether the poll is anonymous or not is not the question, because the type of fear that we're talking about is also irrational. It is entrenched, but it's the type of fear about our lives. People are afraid that as soon as they become visible, that they're going to be at risk of harm and at risk of death.
Minister Kevin Harris of Bahamas Faith Ministries International also questioned if homosexuals who participated in the poll gave honest answers, but he suggested it had nothing to do with fear.
I'll take that very suspiciously. I think that they're being very clever by not announcing it now. I think they want it, but they're being strategic with timing. So I don't play into that. I would be very careful as to how they move and what they say. I think they recognize that this is not the season or the time to make any pronouncements as to what they want.
Green dismissed any suggestion of a hidden agenda, but insisted there are homosexuals who would love to get married in their own country. However, she says, for the vast majority of the local LGBT community, marriage equality is not a priority.
There are some gay people that want it. In fact, in the last 4 weeks, I've been approached by 4 people telling me their stories, their personal stories, and their attempts to get married. You know, they told me about their attempts locally, and a number of these people have moved to the U.S. where they could get married. And so there is a part of the community that wants marriage equality right now.
The results of the poll were compiled long before debate began on whether the fourth constitutional amendment bill will open the door for same-sex marriage. Researchers polled 575 people, which the public domain president says is a respectable sample size for this country's population. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonik Toot.